All right, it's 6:45. So we got a full house. So I want to ask, this is the history class, right? I want to make sure. If not, the conversations class is downstairs. I did not expect this to be full, so this is exciting. So we might have some people trickle in, but we'll get them caught up. So my name is Rob England. I know most everybody, but just in case I don't. And I'm teaching about Christian martyrs today. So before we get started, if we could pray. Dear God, thank you for this day. Thank you for allowing us to gather together and praise you and just learn more about your word and just learn more about your truth. Truth is going to be the most important thing today, and I just pray that you bless that and help show us truth in each and every day. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. All right. So a couple of things. I'd like to start out class not teaching and just discussion. So this will be at your tables. I have the print-offs. I think I got everybody. Writing utensils. If not, let me know. I also put them on Church Center, so if you're more of a digital person, the slides and those are on there as well. So, and I do apologize. I did not realize I printed it out in 10 fonts. So hopefully you brought your glasses. On my computer, I can blow it up, and I do most things digital. So, yeah, so make sure you have your glasses. I apologize. All right, so before I introduce the class, I don't want to introduce the class. I want you to introduce the class. What are we doing here? So at your tables, a couple minutes, talk about these questions I have, if you don't mind. This is a class called Christian Martyrs. It might be helpful if we knew what martyr meant, right? So that's why we're starting first thing. So what is it? Yeah, sure, go ahead.
A person who dies for their belief.
Okay. Anybody have similar? Tables have similar? Anybody have more, maybe a simpler definition? Let me ask it another way. Do you have to die to be considered a martyr?
No.
Okay. Okay. So does that change? Does that change your definition?
Is it someone who's persecuted for their belief?
Okay. Maybe. Yeah, we're getting closer for sure. Okay. Possibly. So martyr actually means one word. It means to witness. To witness. To witness. To witness. So exactly. So we need to talk about the exact, what she just asked is what do we mean by witness, right? What are we witnessing, right? Did I witness, a car wreck on Tuesday? Am I witnessing, right? How do we as Christians usually use that word witnessing? Spreading the gospel. Okay. So yeah, it definitely kind of comes back to this idea of potentially being persecuted, right? Martyr just means to witness. And so that's what we're going to be talking about. Now, I hope that we're all, if we're just going by that strict definition, I hope we're all martyrs. I hope we're all witnessing for Christ. This isn't a class about you, sorry. So we are talking about people that are persecuted, right? Or potentially killed for witnessing. And so that's what we're going to talk about. This is a history class, so we are going to focus on history and context and all the other boring stuff. But I hope to connect it back to faith, right? I mean that's why we're here. I hope to connect it back to the truth, and that's really kind of where the class starts and ends. Is with truth. And so before I get too far into that, kind of do more of an introduction. But before that, almost forgot. What about the second question here? So we kind of understand that witnessing for Christ, right? Could you be under pressure for decades doing that? Or could you be killed in a moment? Which one do you think is more difficult? Okay. You had a 50-50 shot and you picked the wrong one. No, I'm just kidding. There's no wrong answer. Why do you say that?
I say that because, depending upon when that single moment is in your timeline, whether that's in 20s or you spend your whole life, the length of time dictates what would be harder to me.
Yeah, I would 100% agree. Anybody else, maybe something different? Or yeah.
I think it would be way harder to take a stand, to be verbal, like you have a choice right now. You can live or you could die. That would be really hard to say, I don't care, I'm gonna live for Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, for sure. Anybody else? Okay, how so? Okay. Yeah, yeah, I mean, definitely. When you take a look, what we were talking, sorry, I got to remember to repeat myself for the mic, but just what we're talking about is this question here: do you find it harder dying for a belief in a single moment or living faithfully for decades under pressure? And it really is circumstantial. What do you mean by that moment? What matters and what is considered pressure? I think it was on a Wednesday night, but I could be wrong, where we had a missionary and they were talking about witnessing to people in China. And they were talking about, all right, guys, if the police come, like, we're going to sing happy birthday. And so we'll pretend like we're not baptizing people. We're just having a birthday party. I think that was here, but I could be wrong. Like, that's what I think of when I think of like under pressure, or maybe slightly turned up a notch, right? If they catch you in this house, right? Like you're going to be executed. How many people are going to do that anyway? How many people are going to carry a Bible when, if you're caught with it, like it's death? To me, that's pressure. Or, hey, you better be 6 feet apart in that church or you're not going to be meeting, right? Is that pressure? Maybe not on the same scale, but whatever that pressure is. And so, yeah, we're going to be talking about both different kinds of people. And I agree. We're going to be talking about people that live under pressure for decades. We're going to be talking about people that witness in a single moment. And so we're going to be, again, that's what this class is talking about those circumstances. So very good. All right, so just kind of sources of what I'm using. My primary source is going to be Church History in Plain Language by Bruce Shelley. It's probably my favorite history book when it comes to church. Does a really good job, and it talks about other stuff that has nothing to do with martyrs. It's a really good church history book. Highly recommend it. I mean, it's a read. It's not something you're going to finish in an afternoon, but it's good. That's where I'm going to get most of my stuff. I do like, it's called the Christian History Institute. They have some things on there. It's kind of one of those things where you'll find some good stuff, you'll find some not so good stuff, so you got to kind of pick and choose. I also did, and I have a picture up here, is Fox's Book of Martyrs. Has anybody ever read Fox's Book of Martyrs? So this was actually written in the 1500s during the English Reformation. And I love it. It tells some really good stories, and some of those stories I hope that we get to bring up over the next couple of weeks. Not a history book, though. It claims to be history. It reads like history, but it's not history. Does that mean it's not valuable? Absolutely not. That's why, I am using it. But just kind of forewarning, it is not history, right? He's trying to kind of play up the Protestant martyrs for a political reason, which is totally fine. I'm not like knocking that. But it does make it harder for history reasons, which we'll talk about that towards the end of the hour today, the hour and a half. All right, so here's my plan, so you can kind of plan out which weeks you want to miss. So 1 and 2, early martyrs. So we're going to be talking about early Christianity. It's very, very plentiful with martyrs, as we're going to talk about today. I'm not even going to scratch the surface with the martyrs today. And then we're going to talk about 3 and 4 church martyrs. So we're going to talk about what that looks like. On week 4, I'm not going to be here. I have no idea who's going to sub. I told Chris, I said, I'm going on my 10-year anniversary trip. So I will not be here on week 4. So I'm really excited. Please pray for my wife. She's got to be with me for an entire week. So, but we'll do that. And then weeks 5 and 6, modern martyrs. Don't say that too fast. All right. So that's kind of the schedule. All right. So let's dive in. All right. I want to say 35, but I'm going to go 40. All right. If you are just seasoned with life and you are above the age of 40, I don't want to say old, but just, if you're above the age of 40, I need you to assist the people that are not. Okay. They may not get it. All right. Okay. I want you to, at your tables, remind yourself or teach others about the 2 people I'm about to show. Okay? Give you a minute or two. It is actually, yes. Tell me about them. Who are they? What do they do?
John Wayne's the greatest fighter. He's fought in every war.
Yeah. The Duke. What about Rambo?
Soldier, great boxer.
Nope, that's Rocky. Close though.
Rambo was hunted down by the town because he was a veteran.
Yeah, in First Blood, yeah. I'll give you kind of my example from each of these, and again, we can apply them through all the movies. But there's a movie where John Wayne plays Davy Crockett at the Alamo. And at the end of the movie, sorry I ruined a 50-year-old movie, but he dies, and he takes like 10 Mexican soldiers with him, right? I mean, he's just being hit with shots, and again, it's very kind of cinematic end, which, by the way, has nothing to do with this class, but I have to mention it. Davy Crockett probably escaped the Alamo by dressing like a woman, so that whole thing is fake, but anyway, I think it speaks to, the characters that John Wayne plays. And yes, we could go to Jake, you could do Rooster Cogburn. I mean, any of these guys, I mean, he's going to be, that guy. He doesn't, he doesn't end up put up with anything. He's kind of that one man, a lone soldier, just like Rambo, right? Yeah, you see a little bit in First Blood, but a lot of the other ones, he's the one man army. He's taking on all of these guys all at once. He's running in, he's fearless. He is what my grandma would call reckless, right? He is reckless, right? He is just jumping in there, and he is there to save the day, okay? And so when I think of, heroes and people that I just, wow, like I cannot believe people jump in there, maybe not these guys in particular because they're actors, but just that's the type of person that I see. And so when I think of a martyr, that's kind of who I think about, right? And so that's why I wanted to kind of put that out there first. And so while we do that, or before we do that, if you got your Bibles, give you about 5-ish minutes or so. I want us to read about the first martyr. And so if you want to turn to Acts chapter 6, and read the story of Stephen. I got some questions for you here. It might be longer than 5 minutes. Don't stress. I'll check in on you in 5 minutes. But if you want to read and work on this as a table, I'll give you guys until you're done, and then we'll discuss it together. So we just read the story of Stephen, considered the first martyr. Again, died witnessing for his faith, right? I don't want to go too deep because I want to answer these questions. How can his martyrdom teach us about martyrdom in general? Okay. And what part of the story then did he grab a couple of the priests and, lay down suppressive fire while the rest of the guys were coming at him, right? And take it. Verse 7. Does he fit that profile of the big hero that we just talked about? I mean, not really. No. Are martyrs those big, scary hero guys that go out and, get the bad guy? Not really. What is he witnessing? The truth. He's not reckless. He's not going out there trying to die. He's not going out there jumping and, on a grenade or anything like that. He's just saying, guys, here's the truth. Now, he does it a little more, eloquently than that, but he's like, here's the truth, guys. He's not seeking death. He's not being reckless. He's not, going into harm's way on purpose. He's just speaking the truth. In other words, I think somebody said it, he's just witnessing. What they did to him is their response. That's most of martyrs that we talk about. They're not the run and gun Rambos. They're truth. Now, I'll save it for another question. Let's go to the next one. So, how does this story teach us about our faith? Not a whole lot, apparently.
Challenges us in how do we speak truth in our own life.
Yeah. Yeah. And we might just be, in an awkward moment in the Walmart self-checkout line. I mean, he was, in front of the superiors of society who were ready and did kill him. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, what do we do when we're under pressure to speak truth? And again, that could be in a very serious situation, or it could be in something more relaxed. But either way, shouldn't we speak truth? So, what about the most important question there? What does this teach us about Jesus?
Well, he kind of responded the way Jesus responded to the testimonies against him. So I'm guessing Jesus did a really good job of teaching his disciples who taught others.
Yeah, absolutely, right? He says very similar words to the Romans that are nailing him on the cross that Stephen says to these guys. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's good. That is absolutely right? Teaches us that, to imitate Christ, teaches us that, Jesus kind of sets the standard for us. Yeah, absolutely. What else?
They both told God to forgive the people who were persecuting them.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's kind of similar to what he was saying, but yeah, absolutely. Forgiveness, I think you can get a lot out of this story, and yeah, forgiveness is definitely one of them. The ultimate witness, yeah, which is exactly what we're talking about, right? Up to the point of death, are you willing to speak truth? Here's the thing that, and let me backtrack. I think there are wrong answers. I think there are many right answers here. What I really got out of it is Jesus doesn't need us to be Rambo. He just needs us to speak the truth. He doesn't need us to fight in that way for him. He doesn't need us to, go and get into arguments or get into tussles. I think he just needs us to, or wants us to speak the truth. And so that to me is what I get out of Stephen's story is, Stephen is not just, this tough guy that's, taking everybody out. He's just speaking truth. And he refuses to back away from that truth. And that has tremendously helped my faith just, talking about a lot of these guys. They're not fighting. They're just speaking the truth. That's it. So as you noticed, I called an audible. I skipped a part on purpose. I thought it made more logical sense. And then about halfway through, I forgot that I gave you papers that were in my order. So I'm sorry. That is my fault. So we are going to back up and kind of talk about more of the boring part. We're going to talk about kind of the historical context of what's going on. So we are in a time period in history called Pax Romana. What does Pax Romana mean for the Latin speakers? Yeah.
Pax Romana means like peace. Romans had peace.
Yeah, the Roman peace. That's exactly what it means. Good job. Yeah, that's absolutely right. And so the Roman peace is this idea that the Romans, they control so much land. The empire is at peace. There's, little rebellions, not zero rebellions, but little rebellions. And so that's really important. The Roman authorities really want to kind of keep that going, right? They want to keep a good thing going. And that's a really a good understanding of context when we understand, what's going on there in and around Jesus and the disciples' lives and time frame there. When you study history, there is a study within history called historiography, and it's the study of how history works and how history is written over time. And the historiographical approach during the Roman time period was something called eternal Rome. They felt that history was defined by Rome. Rome existing forever, especially at peace, defined history. Okay, and so really that's when we read, Livy and Tacitus and some of these Roman historians, you're seeing that they truly believed that Rome would exist forever and just continue to get better and better and better and more peaceful and peaceful and peaceful. And again, we study history like that as well. Even today, we don't have the eternal Rome thing, but we have our understandings of different historical time periods. Probably one of the most controversial today would be, what is the meaning of the Civil War, right? And we debate that. Again, we're having, not to get into that, but we're having a historiographical discussion. And so when they're having those discussions, that's what they're having. Now, why is that important for us? Well, they're going to do everything they can to make sure they keep that peace. And they believe that anybody that is in the way of eternal Rome is not only in the way of their power, but is in the way of history and destiny. And you could even throw a pagan religious that it's going against the wills of their gods. So they're going to be ready to go when it comes to someone that might threaten their security that they see. Now, the Roman Empire administered their empire. So we live in a really strange time period as far as when it comes to world history. We're used to Germans living in Germany and French living in France and all that stuff. That's not how the world has worked for most of history, right? You had different languages, different ethnicities, different people groups that all lived in one area that really only were united together under one emperor or czar or whatever, Kaiser or whatever it is, that were all united together. And so you had to keep that empire united because they don't share common language and culture and customs. And it turns out that people that don't share those things fight. And so how do you keep all these people that are so different and united together? And it is through loyalty to the throne. And so, again, anything that threatens that loyalty to the throne not only threatens power, but it threatens the very existence of the empire. And again, I'm describing the Roman Empire, but I could be describing the Russian Empire. I could be, describing the Ottoman Empire. I could be describing all sorts of empires that have existed throughout history. And so when somebody who is at least accused of being a king other than Caesar, that's going to rub people the wrong way. They're not just going to see somebody that's annoying, that's, claiming something that's like, oh, okay, whatever, you're just some guy, right? They're seeing somebody is not loyal to the emperor. Somebody is not a loyal Roman subject. We let you guys do so much All we ask is that you worship the emperor, pay your taxes, and you can't even do that. And so, that I'm setting the mindset of these people here. Also, and we talk a lot about this. I won't spend too much time on it. But Jesus did not meet the expectations of what a lot of people thought the Messiah was going to be, right? They thought he was going to be this conquering general and rescue them from Roman rule. He does in a different way, right? A different way than what they thought. And so that's why you have so much persecution. The book, Church History, calls, at least in the eyes of the Romans, calls him a political insurgent. A political insurgent. I'm a child of the early 2000s. When I hear the word insurgent, I think of like Iraq, 2007. That's how they saw Jesus, as a political insurgent. And so that's why whenever, King of the Jews, they whipped right into action. All right, come on now. All right. This is just a couple of my takeaways from all of that. Just reckless versus obedient, right? Is if you're in Rome and you are living during this time period where the Romans want to put this down, they see you as political insurgents, how do you be obedient versus being reckless, right? You don't go and sit down in the Colosseum and try to hold church service, right? I mean, that's a tiny bit reckless. But you're also not going to shy away from truth either. And so, again, that's the context in which these people are living during the Roman Empire. My strength versus his strength. Again, I don't think Stephen does anything special, or any of these martyrs do anything special other than speak truth. And so I hope that you're seeing Jesus's strength and not just the individual martyr. And again, it's Christian martyrdom begins not as a rebellion, but a refusal to redefine what truth is. And that really, really bugs the Romans. And so hopefully that's the context there. And hopefully, you're understanding a little bit more of the context and why the Romans come at it the direction they do. But what's interesting about martyrdom during this time period is it's not just the Romans. It's not just the Romans. So let's take a look at some of the others. So some of the disciples, and not all of these are disciples, but other martyrs that we know of. There are more, obviously, in the early part, right? We're moving at a snail's pace throughout history. There are more, but I wanted to kind of talk about the most historically verified down to legend or what we think. So some of those, like Matthew, there are several stories that, he was dragged by a horse or run in through the sword and all of that. We're not really sure which historically verified, but we do know that he was martyred. And so some of the ones that we're more sure about, those are the ones that I kind of included. So James, the disciple James, not Jesus' brother James, he was beheaded by King Herod. That's actually discussed in Acts 12. Peter is crucified in Rome under Nero, possibly upside down. That's kind of one of those where we have less historical facts on that. But again, definitely know that he was martyred at that time period. Paul was likely beheaded under Nero. Again, we're pretty sure, not exactly sure where, probably in Rome. But Andrew likely killed in Greece, possibly crucified. He was definitely killed in Greece. We believe he was crucified. Believe he was crucified on an X-shaped cross. So, and then James, the brother of Jesus, Josephus tells us that he was thrown off the temple at the highest point, beaten and stoned. So I guess just to make sure, I don't know why you would do both, but I think that speaks to like the anger, look, it's all awful, but beheading is actually pretty decently humane. Again, I know that sounds awful, but, it's like Paul being a Roman citizen, he probably got beheaded because, again, at least I think, like, you're done. Like, you don't feel anything. But some of these others, I mean, it's definitely rage. It's definitely, something that's not good and not necessary. I mean, none of this is necessary, but a lot of this just unnecessarily. And I think James kind of speaks there, like why on earth? And so, kind of talking about that rage there. And so these are some of the early martyrs. They're just in the lifetime of these teachings. One thing that is probably obvious, but I'll say it again: like, these people are speaking truth because they witnessed it. They witnessed the truth. They witnessed it. Jesus is who he says he is because they saw it happen. And so that's really important for when we're talking about some of these martyrs later on. So martyrs and pro. So when you're discussing history, one of the three things that you want to do is you want to make sure that you have good pro. So what is pro? I forgot I wouldn't have the board. I'm sorry. Pro. Are your sources primary? Okay, were those people actually there? Okay, you probably should not ask people that are downstairs what happened up here tonight because they weren't here. Okay, do they have a reason, do they have a reason to distort? Sorry, I'll go slow since I'm not writing it. Do they have a reason to distort? Right? If I wrote a biography or an autobiography on myself, and I tell you how great and amazing I am, well, that's a primary source, okay? But I also have a pretty big reason to distort, right? And so, do I have a reason to distort the truth or whatever's happened? And then the O is other sources. Other sources. So, to go through that again, primary, reason to distort, and other sources. Primary, reason to distort, and other sources. And so if, half the room is telling me, yeah, this is what happened at that class that night, you guys are all primary, you have other sources, and I have absolutely no idea why you would lie about what's going on tonight. Okay, so you guys would be excellent sources about what happened tonight. So what about the martyrs or the disciples and their martyrdom? Okay, they have excellent pro. They saw Jesus. They saw the truth. And people will die for something that they think is true, but they will not die for a lie that they know is false. As soon as you put their feet to the fire, whoa, I was just kidding. I made that up. That's not true. But at the point, again, back to our kind of thesis here, to our point, they met with the point of death with the truth. And not just the truth, but something that they knew to be true because they witnessed it. And so not only is that a good point to bring up with martyrs, but that's just a good apologetic argument anyway, is how excellent their pro is. Primary sources, reason to distort, and other sources. And so we can see how important the truth was to these guys, that they were willing to go to a place that was probably pretty dangerous and die. And again, I couldn't even mention all of them up here. There are some that were sure, like Thomas, potentially made his way to India. Some of these other stories, but again, all except for John are going to be martyred. And again, it goes back to that idea of truth. All right. We are doing great. So 10 minutes. Kind of wanted to do kind of an end of class discussion, and then we'll bring it together for the end. All right.